Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Cup of Joy. I'm your host, Ariana Joy Christie, and I am so glad that you are here. This is a space to inspire, to learn, to grow, and to challenge. Get ready to fill your cup and spread a little joy along the way. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Your Cup of Joy. I am so glad you're here, and I'm so very excited about our guest today. I would like to introduce you to Austin. Austin, please, gay dad through surrogacy and one of my intended parents, which is so stinking cool. I'm so happy to have you here, Austin. Welcome to Your Cup of Joy.
Yeah, surprise. Can we get some confetti for the big
Yeah,
reveal
we
here?
should.
I am so happy to be here, Ariana. We have a great relationship. I'm excited to explore that and talk about my journey of becoming a gay dad. You talk with so many great parents, and I'm just so excited to be here.
Yay. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to have you here, chat about your journey to parenthood. And I'll just start by saying that I was having a conversation with someone actually today, and we were just talking about how there is so much impact in storytelling, sharing our experiences. Obviously, there's healing through storytelling too, on both sides, I think, for people. And so, I just think if this conversation and sharing just our experience can even help one person or inspire conversations in that way, I think then that's a win. So I'm happy you're here. I'm happy that you're open to sharing. And I know that that's something that's important for you too. So yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. And not to like dive into the weeds, but so many people are scared to talk about
Yeah.
infertility. And that's kind of the root of surrogacy. I mean, if you can't have kids, you take that journey, right? So the
Mhm.
more we can talk about it, the more we can be voices for those people who, I mean, honestly, probably feel a bit of shame, which of course they shouldn't, but we need to make our voices louder. So yeah, happy to be here.
I love that. And that is so true. So let's just get right into it. I'd love if you can start by sharing with us a little bit about your decision of wanting to start a family, to become a dad, and then maybe your decision to go the surrogacy route and find an egg donor and a surrogate.
Okay. Oh man, how far
Big
back do we
question, I know.
go? Yeah, I know. So I always knew I wanted to be a dad.
Oh.
I didn't come out until probably university, and at that point, being a dad was really important to me, and I didn't know if it was something that would be in my cards. You know, like if
Mhm.
I'm coming out, eventually I want to be with a dude. How are we going to have a kid? And I knew nothing about surrogacy at that point, so I kind of just put it in the back of my mind, knowing I wanted a family, not knowing about surrogacy or adoption or any of it.
Mhm.
Ended up finding my partner. We both agreed that we wanted to have kids, and we're both engineers, so we're both very like schedule. And that's the main reason we went with surrogacy is you know your timeline.
Mm,
We've heard, I don't want to say horror stories, but unfortunate stories of parents going through the adoption route and just
mm,
waiting years upon years and having no set timeline. So that was one of the biggest
yeah,
deciding factors for us, was just knowing a kid will hopefully be arriving at this date. Let's prepare for it, and
yeah.
that's the date that we'll become dads.
Interesting. I've never even thought about that as being a motivating factor, but that does make so much sense. You do have a little bit more control over that when you are going into that process. That's so interesting.
Yeah, of course. And in Canada, it's so different in different countries in the world. There's laws around surrogacy and fertility, all of that. But
Mhm.
in Canada in particular, there's also a long wait time because I see you have your cup of tea. Love it. So on
Always,
brand, so on
always.
brand.
Yeah.
Um, but in Canada, you can't pay your surrogate. There's this misconception of people paying for their babies. In Canada, it's definitely not that way. You cover
Mhm.
their expenses, but because they aren't getting paid, there's such a high demand for surrogates, because people do it out of the goodness of their hearts, you know? So there's also a timeline with that you have to account for.
That's so true. I shared actually in our last episode that I think there is this like preconceived idea when people think about donation or surrogacy that like it's money motivated and that you're making like bank for selling your eggs or something. And I'm like, this is not true. It's actually illegal to exchange money for egg donation. And I wasn't sure about surrogacy. So that's something that I'm learning today too. But it must make you feel good to know that then the motivation behind somebody who's going to carry your baby is good, right? Like if the motivation is not money, then it's the goodness of their heart.
It is, and it's such a double-edged sword because
Mm,
as intended parents, you're looking at profiles and you know all of these people are doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. So you want to say yes to everyone, but there's certain criteria that you also need to follow to hope for the best possible outcome. So
totally.
it's tough. It like wrenches on your heart because you're like, oh, all of these people are doing such amazing things and they want to carry a baby for us, and we have to say no to some of them. So that was
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, and also something that I've never considered in finding the surrogate for you. So that's so interesting. Um, and I know there's tons of different fertility companies and doctors out there, but how do you choose the right company to work with? Like, what was that journey like for you when you kind of thought, okay, this is what we're gonna do?
Yeah, we had a hiccup at the start. We
Oh.
decided to work with a local agency, and I'm not going to throw out names, no shade here, nothing, but they just didn't work well with us because they were
Mm,
more of a boutique, and they asked us what we were looking for in an egg donor, in a surrogate, and they would go out and approach those people, which is
mm.
wild in my opinion. Like, how do you
Yeah.
approach someone to ask for that? I don't even know how that all worked. But anyways, we ended up moving to an online platform because us, I already mentioned, we're a little controlling. We wanted to look at all of the profiles and kind of see who was there and make our own decisions. So
Yeah.
that first agency ate up about a year of our time. And I
Wow.
wish we would have done more research looking for different companies. But oftentimes, when something is new to you, you gravitate to things that are local to you. I think we
Yeah.
all do it. I definitely do it.
Totally. And because it's more accessible, it's there, you're searching in your area and your region. Um, so that's also cool. I didn't know that there's online versus in person. What was that process like? How did you go about that?
Yeah, so I'll chat more about the online platform because that's where we had the better experience.
Yeah.
And so we were looking at profiles. I think there were new ones that would come up maybe once a week. We went through the database, and for me and my partner, we were looking for someone with darker hair, darker eyes because we wanted a good mix of us. And
Mhm.
most people, and no shame, like whatever you want. Most people want the blonde hair, blue eyes. And so we
Ah,
found a lot of that, but we didn't find exactly what we were looking for. Of course, until our wonderful egg donor here showed
yay.
up. And the moment I saw your profile, Ariana, I was like, oh, she's the one. She's the one. She's
Oh, my
definitely the
heart.
one. But I didn't want to tell my partner that. His name is Stefan. I'm sure I'll interchange them as we go on. But I didn't want to tell him because I didn't want to influence his decision. So I was
Mm.
like keeping the straightest face I could. And I gave him the profile, and he looked at it and he was like, oh, yeah. He's like, I think this is the one. And my heart just like
Oh,
exploded. I was like,
oh
yes,
my
let's go
gosh.
for it. So we messaged you instantly and you responded, and that was that. We were so excited.
That was so incredible, and I thought something really cool too, which I touched a little bit on in my previous episode, was just that I feel like our values aligned too. Like, the looks obviously was, like, a big piece of it, and I mean, you have the most precious baby. She's not even a baby anymore, but,
No.
like, it couldn't have worked out better, and I think she does, like, she looks like both of you. Like, ironically, it's literally the perfect match. But I think what was so cool for me as the egg donor was that our values were just so aligned. Like, I feel like even when we met and chatted, even just on FaceTime, I was like, wow, like, I feel like we're so similar. We have so many things in common. Like, our reasoning for starting families was like very on par with each other too. And I just felt like the emotional piece for me and the value piece was definitely motivating for me and why I felt connected to you too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I felt so connected to you. And let's touch on the point that most egg donors, they want to be anonymous. They don't really
Yes.
want to have a connection with their intended parents, which is fine. It's a big responsibility. It's you're opening yourself up to another family essentially. And
Yeah.
one thing you wanted in your profile was to keep that connection. And that was
Hmm.
something we wanted against the guidance of our doctors. The doctors specifically told us, they're like, no, it should be anonymous. And we were like, screw that. Our
Yeah.
daughter's going to know she didn't come from just us. She's going to be a smart cookie when she grows up. So we wanted to keep
Totally.
those doors open, and the fact that you wanted to have a relationship as well, it was just the perfect match.
Yeah, that was a big point for me and something that I found so interesting because as a motivating factor for me to donate, like I wanted to know who the people were that were going to be these parents. And like that to me, hearing the statistic that only 3% of egg donations are known was like mind boggling. Like I was like, what? And of course, that's so great that people are willing to donate and also not be known. Like maybe that's just not a piece that they want, on their plate or in their life or whatever. But I just I feel like if I didn't get to know you and Stefan, then I would be like, "Oh, I don't know." Like, it wouldn't feel right to me, and I just feel like it's such a blessing and so special. I feel so privileged to be able to be a part of your journey to parenthood, so thank you for that, but I do think that that value piece, the reason like, the that we were on the same wavelength in that regard was a big motivating factor on both sides too.
Yeah, and from the parent perspective about being anonymous, it's I think there might be some deep-seated like competition brewing a little bit because
Mm,
when there is no mom, you might be worried that your child might gravitate to wanting a mom or viewing the egg donor as a mom. So we've been
true.
very diligent in just not using the word mom in our
Yeah.
house. Like our daughter Maya, she's very aware. She has two dads. She doesn't have a mom, but that's okay. She has two dads. That's pretty cool. She has an egg donor. She has a surrogate. And on Mother's Day, we make cards for grandmas. Like our family's just different and
Yeah.
it works great for us.
Yeah, and I mean, even for me getting to meet her and know her even just a little bit, like she's the happiest girl ever. Like I don't think that she's missing that piece or anything like that either. Like she's so happy to have her two dads and I think the relationship that you guys have with her is just so beautiful and your family is so wonderful. So, I
Aw,
think
thank
that's so cool.
you.
Yeah, of course. And so why then was that important for you to have a known donation and what did that because like you said, like going against what doctors are telling you when you're new into this process, it's you kind of are almost like inclined to listen to everything that somebody in a uniform is saying to you. Like, "Oh, you're the doctor, so okay." And so why did your I feel like it's probably value based for you, but why did that come through as something that you were really adamant about wanting?
Yeah, 100%. For most things, we did listen to the doctors, but this was one thing that was value based for us because when it
Mhm.
comes to family or relationships, we just value honesty. And
Love.
we wanted to keep that door open for Maya. And if she wants a relationship, if she wants to call you up or text you, you guys become BFFs. Like who knows what it would be, but we wanted to
Yeah.
keep that door open for her. And we think, honestly, as cliche as it is, the best policy is honesty. There's no point in lying because at some point you're going to have to backpedal and tell the truth. And that's just a whole mess you don't want to get into.
I couldn't agree more, even from like a parenting principle. Like that is so important for us in our household too, and being open with our kids and in all aspects. And so where they came from is kind of like a big part of that too. So I just think that that's so incredible that you guys are doing that and making it not be this thing that like we addressed at the beginning can be like shameful for some people. Like it's very I think encouraging that you guys are being so open with her and sharing that with her and I think it will help her through her whole life to really have that trusting relationship with you both.
Yeah, and we're so fortunate that we live in Canada. We live in a
Yeah.
city that's pretty decent with it. We've never really had too much hate, but I could see how it would be very difficult in other parts of the world to kind of be out and loud, and me being loud online as well. I don't know. We just feel very fortunate that we're at a time and place. And even when we talk about surrogacy and how expensive it is, like at a point financially where we could even afford to do this, like we just feel so
Mhm.
fortunate in all of those facets.
Yeah, totally. So you said a little bit about your online platform. So tell me a bit more about that, what it's been like for you, and also why that's like something that you wanted to decide to share.
Yeah, of course. Well, Ariana, you talk about self care all the time. And I feel like at the beginning of COVID, I was like all in on posting on Instagram and I went super hard. I wanted to be this gay dad personality out there for everyone. And I loved it, but it was taking away from my family time. And there was a point where I definitely slowed down a lot. I still love being there. And
Mhm.
multiple people DM me about wanting to be a dad, being gay, all of this stuff that I love being a voice for. But ultimately, like just being present in the moment with my daughter right now is the most important thing to
Mm.
me.
Yeah,
And I love being there for other people, but ultimately she's always going to come first. So my online personality, I still love it. I still do it, maybe a little at less velocity than I did in the past. But I'm just really spending that time with my daughter as much as I can.
that's so incredible. I love that. And through sharing your journey online, have you connected with other people who were maybe at the place that you were when you were thinking about starting a family? Like, have you been able to be that support even in a small way to people?
Yeah, I have, and that those are the most meaningful moments or the DMs that I get from people wanting to be parents or people that I see myself in from
Oh,
years ago, not sure if I could be a dad, and just
mhm.
guiding them through the possibilities that are open to us now. It is just so fulfilling to be that role model that I guess I never had.
I love that so much, and it is so important, and I think it goes back to sharing the journey and the motivation behind sharing is just that you can really have impact on people by even just letting them know your experience and making it be a possibility for them. Because, like you said, if it's not crossing your mind, if you haven't heard about surrogacy or known anybody who has gone through that, it can be hard to find that information or to take the initiative to do that. So I think that's so incredible that you do that. So, you told us a bit about the egg donation process and how we connected, and I shared a little bit about that. How did you find your surrogate, and what was that process like?
Yeah, so Surrogate was very similar. We used a sister company to the donor company that we had used. So it was also an online platform. And I feel like I'm a broken record. Going back to us being engineers, we had a spreadsheet and we would put people in and it would like do some formulas to see if
Oh my
they
god.
reached the criteria that we wanted. And that sometimes I have trouble saying that because it sounds kind of cold because you are dealing with people, but at the same time it's an investment into your future and it's your family and you want to make sure you're doing every upfront step that you can, right?
Totally. A lot that goes into that too isn't necessarily only, like, genetics and health. Like, I remember even from the egg donation process for me, like, I had to go talk to a therapist and have screening done too because there's a lot of emotional pieces that play a role, and I only know from the egg donation process. I can only imagine from a surrogate's point of view, the emotional standpoint that happens there.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. Contracts,
Mhm.
location is a big one.
Mm.
So most surrogates and egg donors are across the country from where we are. So
Yeah,
that's a big thing to think about as well. Is do you want to fly and visit? There are so many things that go into it, and ultimately, you also have to add your gut feel in there, and you don't know how
totally.
to do that. So it's nice that most of the profiles do have bios, so you can
Mm.
read a bit about them and see if you feel like you connect. And
Yeah.
then after that happens, you reach out, you have usually a Skype or WhatsApp chat back and forth and see if you connect from there and then
Mm.
keep moving forward. But again, because there are so many people who want surrogates and very few surrogates, you also feel like you can't be too picky because then you're going to lose out on all your opportunities,
Oh,
which makes it difficult because you want the
yeah.
best possible option, but you need to kind of pick and choose.
Totally, and that would be so difficult because also there's 2 of you making that decision together too. So, I'm sure you might have cared more about some parts of a surrogate than maybe Stefan did, and that could probably be difficult.
Yeah, 100%. There were a couple of times I liked someone or he liked someone, but ultimately it had to be a joint decision.
Yeah, but I think that also is a testament to your relationship too, and that you guys could really make that decision together and be respectful of each other's, like, motivations and things that you guys really did care about. So I think that's incredible. And then, so when you find like, oh, this is the perfect prospect, this is somebody that we want to have, carry our child. What is next? What happens?
Yeah, we chatted with them. And then it gets into the medical process. Once everything is
Mm,
approved, we sign the contracts, and then they do a transfer. So before that, we would have made our embryos, which is where the egg and the sperm come together. And a cool fun fact about that is you can freeze embryos indefinitely, like forever, without them losing any health, which is crazy in
wild,
my mind. But if
so
you
wild.
freeze your eggs or you freeze just sperm, like over time they degrade. So that was cool to know.
I didn't even know that.
Right? Yeah.
So
So
there's
it's kind of
benefit to
neat.
creating the embryo first.
Yeah, so if you have embryos, you can store them as long as you want. So we
Crazy.
had ours made and we were waiting for the perfect surrogate. We found the perfect person. They went ahead and did the transfer. And luckily for us, it did transfer on the first take, which is amazing. We need more of that confetti on the screen here.
Yes, literally,
And
that's, like, the best.
yeah, and then we started the whole, like, just waiting to be dads, which was a very strange disconnect for us because it
Totally.
felt like a dream. Like, our family was starting across the country, someone else was carrying the baby, and nothing in our lives was changing for the entire 9
Hmm.
months. Like, we were
Yeah.
mentally preparing, but there were no, like, obviously, no swollen feet, no weird cravings, none of that stuff. So
Yeah.
everything that you imagine pregnancy is going to be or you hear about was very different for us because we were so far removed from it.
You weren't going to get emergency blizzards at 2 AM?
We should have.
Weird.
You know what? We should have taken advantage of that.
That was me. Wild, wild. But you're right, like, I haven't really thought of it from your perspective, as this is obviously something so impactful, like, really going to change your life, and as someone who has been pregnant with my own children, I did have that, I was feeling sick, my boobs hurt, I was changing my clothes, like, those are all indicators that even if you're not mentally thinking about it, you're preparing because your body is preparing. And then for your partner, like for Mike, um, he's watching that happen and he's like seeing my demeanor change. So it's almost like without us trying, we're having to prepare versus you really thinking about it. It's probably all consuming all the time thinking about it, but not having it there happen with you.
Yeah, like it just felt like a dream. And
Yeah.
then the day that the birth happened, we were over across in the country, and it was during COVID.
Yes.
COVID was, I don't know if we can swear, a shitstorm for everyone. Um,
Literally.
So when we got to the hospital, we were told that we wouldn't be allowed to be there for the pregnancy because of all the restrictions. But luckily, our surrogate was such an advocate for us. She talked to the nurse and ended up getting us in, so we were able
Get
to be
out.
present for the birth. It
Oh.
was amazing. I
That is so incredible that she took it upon herself to advocate for you. Like, it's one thing to be carrying a baby and to try to advocate for, like, your own health in birthing the child, but the fact that she really did advocate for you both is that just, like, makes my day. That's incredible.
Yeah, and like let me tell you, we were okay with not being there, but once we were there and we saw everything, we were like we wouldn't like miss this for the world. Like we're so fortunate to see this and you don't understand the miracle of it and just all the emotions going on everywhere until you're there. So I'm so thankful that we were able to be there because we wouldn't have known what we would have missed out on.
Totally. It almost makes me cry. I have goosebumps because birth is such a beautiful thing, and so the fact that you could be there and experience that together as a couple too, because I know with COVID rules, sometimes it was like one person, not two. Like, I just think that that's so important, and it is part of the bonding process for both of you, for the baby, probably for her to see you guys experiencing that too. Like, I just think that's so important, and I'm so happy that you had that experience.
And she was such a rock star. She gave
Oh.
birth, and we were kind of torn because obviously she's in pain, and we wanted to stay by her. And then
Mhm.
our daughter was born, and the nurses had her over there. And she just looked at us and she was like, "What are you guys doing? Go over, go see your daughter." And we were like, "Okay, oh, thank
Yay.
you for giving us that permission. Like, you are awesome."
That is so incredible. I think it just goes to show that you obviously made the best decision in having her be your surrogate.
Mhm.
That's so cool. So take me back a little bit through the pregnancy process, and she was not in the same province as you, right?
No, not in the same province, across the country. We flew out to visit her. I think we were flew out there 2 times. One time to give our sperm because it's better to do that locally, and then the other time we flew out when she was, I think, halfway through her pregnancy.
Hmm.
But other than that, we were connected digitally, like talking, FaceTiming, all of that. But that's also why it felt odd. We only touched her
Yeah.
baby bump once, and then the
Oh,
next time we were there, we had a baby.
that is so wild to me. So what was communication like? Like, did you have a schedule? Was it kinda just like whatever happens? How did that work for you?
It was kind of whatever happens. Like, we knew it was a good relationship because we could just casually be like, "Hey, do you wanna chat today? Yeah, let's chat." We didn't feel the need to have a schedule or plan out a spreadsheet. It just worked so seamlessly.
In terms of surrogacy, because, like, for egg donation, we talked about known versus anonymous. Is there, like, a conversation that happens before of how hands-on you're gonna be in that relationship or what communication will be like after the baby's born?
Yeah, there is, and every surrogate is different. This surrogate also aligned with our values. We wanted
Mhm.
to keep a relationship, and she was very open to that. So I
Love
think
that.
that's another reason we connected.
Yeah. So another motivating factor, I guess, when choosing a surrogate too, not just health. That's so cool. So you've stayed in contact with her? You've stayed in touch with her?
Yep, still in contact. She's had how many? I think she's had 9 births. She
I
has 5
remember you
kids of
told me
her
this.
own.
I was
Yeah,
like, "What a superhero." Like, this
seriously,
woman is incredible.
superwoman. Yeah.
That's wild.
She
Incredible.
just loves it. It's her calling. So the fact that we can stay connected with her and just follow her other journeys that she has and see the joy that she's bringing to other people's lives is amazing.
That is so cool. I love that. So you touched a little bit on cost and how that is a
Mhm.
huge factor when considering surrogacy. I put a question box in my Instagram stories saying that I was going to be talking about surrogacy and if anybody had questions. And the number one question that came up was cost. So, whatever you're comfortable with sharing, can you share with us a little bit about costs associated with surrogacy and I guess egg donation, like the whole process to parenthood for you? And obviously how that plays a role in the process.
Yeah, of course.
Also
This
keeping
is
in
a
mind
hot
that it's Canada.
Yes, exactly, right?
Yeah.
This is a hot topic. Everyone wants to know how much it costs, and I will just
Mhm.
come out and say the high-end figure that we paid, it was
Mhm.
110,000 for us, Canadian. But I've heard of that number being much higher in the States, much higher in different
Oh.
countries, especially if you're an international parent and
Mm.
it's illegal in your country. A big one is France. You will go to maybe Canada, but then you don't have any coverage for your medical expenses because you're not a
Oh,
citizen. So that
yeah.
value can rise up to $500,000.
Oh
It
my
is
god.
extremely expensive. And again, in Canada, you're not paying the people. The money doesn't go to the egg donor. The money doesn't go to the surrogate. These are the medical expenses that you're paying for that are not covered
Yeah.
because most of IVF isn't covered.
Yeah. And now I've just recently become aware of some like grants and some nonprofits that do provide some money to people, but I think it's a very small fraction of that cost. So whether you are getting a grant or not, you're still looking upwards of like six figures,
Yeah,
which is a
you gotta
huge,
really
huge
want
cost.
it. Um,
Truly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because that's like life changing money to people, right? Like that is, I'm sure you had to change your whole lifestyle to make sure that that would be something that you guys could plan for. And I guess it goes back to you saying that you were able to plan it. Like that's the benefit of surrogacy is you do get to have a plan of when you're going to embark on that journey, when the cost will come up. But I think it's something important to note is that the journey of surrogacy and having a baby in this way is costly. And I think that it becomes a bit of a problem too for people because that's just an extra added barrier for somebody who already maybe is having struggles with fertility for any reason.
It is, and to go back to the fertility, I mean, we are fine being loud about it because we are 2 dudes, there's no way we can have a kid. But for people who, like, if you're a woman, you must feel like your body is supposed to be able to do that. So I can't
Mhm.
even comprehend how difficult that would be. And it makes me understand why there's a level of shame and people don't talk about it. So
Totally.
you saying that we need to be voices for people, I think that is so true. And we are
Mm.
in such a great position for it because we don't have any of that associated shame with thinking that our bodies should be able to do this.
That's so true. It's a good thing to note and perspective to share too, because you are right. Like Mike and I, thank goodness, like I'm so grateful that we were able to have children and that that process worked the way that it did for us. But I remember, like, it's kind of a weird mindset shift because your whole life as a teenager, a young adult, whenever you're sexually active, like, as a woman, I lived my entire sexually active life being like, "Don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant." You know, it's like this thing that you're, like, so scared of. So then when you're trying to get pregnant, you just think immediately it will happen. And I remember, like, the first few months it didn't happen, and I was, like, going down a rabbit hole of, like, "Something's wrong with me, my body's not working properly, maybe I didn't take care of something, I don't know when." Like, your mind just spirals into, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna be able to have a baby." So I can't imagine, um like, for me, it wasn't that long of a period of time, it was a few months. For that to go on for a year, like, I have friends who have had fertility struggles who said they weren't actually able to get help until they had been trying consistently for a year. That seems to be, like, the measure of when you're eligible to go to a fertility clinic, and it's, like, the mental toll that takes, and then there's outside factors of everybody else, all your friends announcing that they're pregnant or people saying, like, "Oh, we didn't even try, it was by mistake." Like, those things are people aren't saying to be harmful or hurtful, but because it's this silent thing that you carry, you do feel shame when you feel that your body is meant to do something and then it doesn't immediately.
Yeah, or you don't wanna make a big deal about it, so you say it happened without trying, when in reality, you've been trying for quite a while.
Totally.
We recently had a loss through surrogacy. It was devastating, but it opened up so many more communication channels with other people who have had troubles, having a birth, and it just shows you what people don't talk about until you personally open up, and then someone else is usually like, "Oh, that happened to me," or "I've felt that," or "I know someone who has felt that." So
Mhm.
just the power of opening up and communication.
Totally, and thank you for sharing that with us. I remember when you were going through that, and I was devastated for you because I could only imagine how you both were feeling, all of you. And something to note too that I learned is like 1 in 4 people experience a loss, a miscarriage, 1 in 4 pregnancies, and I'm like, that is like a huge percentage and something that nobody is talking about. Like, once you start opening those lines of communication, I've heard of so many people in our life who had experienced that. Some people multiple times. And it's like, how have I lived my life knowing these people for years and never known that? And then wasn't able to be there to support them. It's almost like you're stuck suffering and feeling this grief and going through this loss by yourself because we feel shame and not comfortable sharing. It's so sad and so difficult, and I was thankful you shared it with us because, we could send our thoughts and love to you and just really think about you and help to try to let you know that you weren't alone in that. But what is that process like? Because we talk about, like, the great times of having a surrogate, having the embryo implantation take right away, getting pregnant, boom, you have a baby. But when that doesn't work out every time, um, what is that process like?
Yeah, it's I mean, obviously it's so difficult on everyone because I think people take on personal guilt, especially our surrogate, and
Yeah,
no fault of her own, but you feel this level of responsibility because you're doing a service out of the goodness of your heart for someone else and it doesn't work out. So uh,
totally.
she was feeling down, we were feeling down, and I'd say the biggest loss for us was just we had pictured, and I'm sure most people do, pictured our vision of the future with another child and just what our
Mhm.
family would be. So it
Yeah.
was having to reel that back and just changing our direction when we kind of maybe thought a little too far ahead or were a little too optimistic that it was going
Mhm.
to happen. But
Yeah.
that stat that you shared is wild. 1 in 4. Like,
Wild.
we don't hear about that growing up. So you
Mhm.
just expect it that it works for everyone.
Totally. And I think, like, it's movies, it's people's experience, all of that plays a role in your thoughts and your beliefs in something like parenthood or pregnancy or birth. But it's true, like, in high school, you're like, "Oh, somebody has sex one time and they get pregnant."
Yeah.
So, like,
Or
"Oh, it
you
must be
eat a
easy."
watermelon seed, pregnant
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah, literally, like, it's like this thing that we hear that side, but we don't hear the other side about the difficulties or the struggles that people might have. And I think it's easy for people to put blame on themselves too. Like you even said with the surrogate, like obviously it wasn't her
Yeah,
fault. She didn't
exactly.
do anything wrong, but you do hold guilt for sure. Which is just so terrible and so sad. Well, thank you for sharing that with us because I know that that's so difficult. Um, did you find support through the clinic that you used? Like, what was their process if that happens?
Um,
Sorry if that's a bad
no,
question.
no, it's okay. I feel like they need to work on their automated email flows a little better
Oh,
because
no.
we got emails saying that congratulations, you're so far along, and things had ended, and they knew very well that they had ended. So that was just not very well done on their
No.
part.
That's
I
so
mean, they
awful.
did what they could to reach out with us to us with like phone calls and whatnot, but the
Mhm.
real support we got were from friends and family, like the people who are closest to you.
Mhm. Do you think that that was a motivating factor for you too when starting a family and embarking on the surrogacy journey? Was having supports in place important to you? Like, how open were you with your family and your friends? What was that like for you?
Yeah, very open. I am such an open person. I will tell everyone everything. I just love sharing my journey. So this was fun and exciting for us. It was new for us and it was new for most of the people around us. We didn't know anyone who had done the surrogacy process.
Oh.
So it was great to have the support, but I also just liked sharing the journey with people and educating them on the process and all the cool stuff that's going on to allow us to become dads.
That is so incredible. I think you and I are so similar. Like everything that you say about yourself, I've always, since meeting you, have been like, oh, yeah, me too. I
You're
feel
like,
like
"Oh,
it's how we,
podcast?" I'm like, "Oh, that's so cool. I should do one of those too."
I love it. We're just like connected on this different wavelength. And that's why I think, too, like you said, having that gut feeling, like sometimes that it really is part of it too. Like I just felt drawn to you both. Egg donation was never something that had really crossed my mind until like I explained it in my last video, but really it wasn't something that I had like sought out to do. And so I think through meeting you, receiving the letter from you both, understanding who you both are, like I just felt connected to you and drawn to you. So I do think that that plays a role in the process too, is like the timing, the people that you meet, the way that it happens. I think that that's important also.
Yeah, you can look back and feel like it was meant to be, but there's a lot of little decisions you made along the way that made you get here. And just
Totally.
us writing that letter and how important that was to you and us connecting more through that. Like maybe if we didn't write the letter, it wouldn't have happened. Who knows,
Probably
right?
not. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, really probably not, because I was never being like, "Oh, I'm gonna donate my eggs." Like, that really wasn't a thing that had ever crossed my mind. So, I do think once I read the letter, I was like, "How could I not?" You know? Like, I just feel like so connected to you. So, I just think it's so cool how everything happened and worked out, and I just love that you are sharing it and sharing with your friends and sharing with your family. I think something to note too that I just really loved about both of you was how involved your family wanted to be. Like I remember meeting your mom and just how excited she was to be a grandma. And I sometimes talk about the importance of a village. Um, and I maybe you can share a little bit about what it takes a village means to you and how that has played a role in your journey.
Yeah, for us, like it takes a village. I think for us, it is having the female role models for our
Mm.
daughter because that was something that we'll navigate. We'll figure it out. There's YouTube. We can learn stuff. Like that's fine.
Yeah.
But we've never lived that experience. So for us, the village is really the grandmas, the aunties, all of
Mm.
those people who can bring in the female perspective for our daughter that we don't necessarily have.
That's so awesome that you have taken initiative to do that too, because again, it's something that never really crossed my mind, but that's probably very important to her too, even without knowing at her age. Because share with us, if you don't mind, a little bit about Maya,
Oh
um,
yes.
and
I
what
will.
being a dad has been like. Yeah,
Yeah, of course. So she is now 4 and she is her own
wild,
sassy little human being, which I love. I think independence is so important and she's as independent as they come. And when
incredible.
it comes to just even female figures like we were talking about, we just had her in swimming lessons and it's very apparent that she gravitates more to men and to
Oh,
the male teachers. So she had
mhm.
a female teacher and just was being a little shit, just was not listening to the teacher at all. And we were like, Maya, like, why don't you listen? We saw her looking over, paying attention to the other teachers. So now
Wild.
we're aware that that's something we have to work on. But
Mhm.
yeah, she's honestly, she's an amazing girl. We're so happy with our little gay family, and it's just everything that we wanted.
That's so incredible. I'm so, so happy for you guys. And I want to just talk a little bit too about when she was born. So I was so excited to hear about your process and that you got to see the birth and you got to be there, even despite it being the pandemic, like you said, because I know that is a worry. And also, like another barrier to really touch on is that you're not in the same province. Like you have to fly
Mhm.
to get there. And so sometimes like partners miss their own kid's birth from the distance. And so you literally being the parents, both of you there, like could have risked not even having one of you there. And so that is a big risk to take when choosing a surrogate, having them further away. Timing isn't always perfect. You can't always schedule exactly when the birth is going to happen. And sometimes it's fast and sometimes it's slow. Sometimes it's early, sometimes it's late.
Mhm.
So I just think the fact that you were there, incredible. And then I thought that it was so special that Mike and I actually got to come and meet Maya when she was born. So if you can share maybe why you were okay with us coming, how that came to be, and what it meant to you to have us all in the same place too.
Oh, we were so happy to have you guys there. Like, there was not even a question in our minds. And
Oh,
it's wild to think that this was before you had any kids at all.
I know.
Like,
It's
I
crazy.
can see the picture in my head. I remember it so vividly, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, they're gonna make great parents. Like, I just can't wait
Oh,
for them to have kids." And you
so
were so
amazing.
loving, just holding her, and I mean, ultimately, you did such an amazing thing for us. Why
Oh.
wouldn't we want you to be there? And we want you to be a part of our daughter's life. So there was no question in our mind. We wanted you there, and we were so happy to have you there.
Oh, that makes me so, so happy because when I said to Mike, like, "We get to go and meet the baby," I, like it was surreal to me. It was, like, incredible because, the miracle of life really is a true miracle, but then the miracle of life through all of the barriers that you both had faced was just, like, that much more incredible. Like, I was like, "I can't even believe that," I went to a doctor's office once, injected myself with some hormones. You both had said like, "Okay, we wanna have a baby." You went through this process of finding a surrogate, having a successful like, it the amount of things that had to come together for it to happen and then witnessing the actual life that you both created is just it was, like, the most beautiful moment to me. I remember seeing you both so happy, and I was like, "This was meant to be." Like, you both were so meant to be parents, and you are gonna be the best parents, and now getting to see you be the best parents ever is so incredible. I remember the little dress she was wearing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's the cutest baby I've ever seen." Um, and I think at that time in our life too, like, we knew that we wanted to be parents eventually, and we weren't at that stage yet, and so getting to witness you becoming parents was just so special. It kind of, like, foreshadowed what life would be for us someday, and I think that was just so incredible and special for both me and Mike.
Oh, thank you for that. And let's not overlook everything you did as well. I don't know if you shared on your last one, but how much Gatorade did you drink? Or was
Oh
it
my god,
Powerade?
like Gatorade, and I was sharing that, and I'm like, "Do I sound dumb?" Like, this truly was they were like, "Don't drink water, like, drink Gatorade," and for, like, 3 years after that, I did not want to look at Gatorade ever again. Like, I was like, "This is so disgusting." It's like drinking syrup. I think I
When you
gained, like,
told
30
us, yeah.
pounds. It
When you
was
told us, we
wild.
were like, "What? What are you talking?" So what was your go-to flavor?
Red, which
Red,
now
best
I
one.
probably could never drink again. So
So
gross.
funny.
Yeah. Crazy. So, yeah, it just was like the most beautiful, magical moment. I loved meeting her. And then Mike and I were actually visiting where you guys live, which was so cool. I sent you a message to see like, "Hey, let's meet up for a little visit." And I'm so grateful. So we brought Callie with us, and we were able to come to your home and see Maya like as a grown toddler, like child, kid, not a baby, and like
Yeah,
see her personality. She showed us her home and her toys, and it was just so neat to see you all in your own environment, not through a screen, because FaceTiming is one thing. And with kids, FaceTime is hard sometimes,
yeah.
they don't want to just focus on that. But really getting to meet her and see her was just so beautiful for us to witness, you as a family now with a child. Um, and I'm just so thankful for our relationship. And I think sharing that for me is important because I want people to know that it can be a personal thing if you want it to be, and it doesn't have to be. But this is a really unique relationship that I'm forever grateful for.
Yeah, you and me both. And when you came to visit, it was so nice to see Maya just gravitating towards you and her sitting
Oh,
on your lap and just you guys having this relationship that we always wanted our daughter to have. So thank you for being part of her life as well.
of course. I feel so blessed to have been able to be like a little part of that for you. So I can't let you leave without asking you a question about self-care. This podcast
Mhm.
is called Your Cup of Joy, and it's all about promoting self-care and debunking the myth that self-care is selfish. So, what does self-care mean to you, and how do you prioritize that now that you are a parent of like a kid? She's like barely a toddler anymore.
Yeah. So self care, I suck at it right now. To be completely
Oh,
honest,
Austin.
I'm not very good. We need to spend more time together as a couple. I feel like we spend so much time with Maya and we love it. Like it's great, don't get me wrong,
Mm,
but we need to carve out some time for us. So I've
mm.
been listening to your podcast. I've got some tips and
Yay.
tricks already. I'll make sure to do those. But when it comes to personal self care, for me, it's as simple as just walking Maya to daycare and walking home by myself, listening to a podcast and taking
Mm,
the long way. Like just letting my mind decompress a little bit and having a little bit of me time. It's nothing
totally.
expensive, it's nothing fancy, it's just me and myself.
I think that's such an important message that I try to convey too is that like self-care doesn't have to cost money. The only thing it costs you really is your time. And prioritizing that time will give you a return back like 100 times over. So I think that's, yeah, such an important thing is that it really doesn't have to be a big gesture. You don't have to go to the spa and get a facial. Like it doesn't have to be something outrageous. It really can be 5 minutes of reading a book, going for a walk, spending time sitting in your car drinking a coffee in silence. Like it can be all of those things. So
Mhm.
maybe this is your take home is that you need to make sure that you're scheduling a little bit of time each day for you.
I think so. I think this is the wake up call I needed.
That's good. Well, I'm gonna make you report back. I will
Okay,
be in touch.
deal. Yeah.
And to end, Austin, is it okay if I ask you some rapid fire questions?
Ooh, yes. Please
Okay,
do.
just a few. Go-to coffee order.
A steep tea?
Oh, yum.
Yeah.
Okay, one word to describe yourself.
Loud?
I love it. See, we're so much alike. It's wild. How would you describe your parenting style?
Compassionate.
Love. Oh my gosh. One thing you can't live without?
Steep tea?
And dream travel destination.
Ooh, so we were just in Portugal. We booked
Yeah.
another trip to Portugal and are contemplating maybe living there for a couple years.
Stop. So it was worth it.
It was so worth it.
Oh my gosh, I might need to add that to my list. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being so transparent, sharing your journey, sharing your feelings and your thoughts and your intentions and everything. I just think that this is such an important thing to share, and I'm just forever grateful for you.
Yes, thank you, Ariana. This was amazing. Thank you for having me on. And thank you for starting a podcast and talking about self care and just bringing transparency to your journey and telling everyone about egg donation and surrogacy. I think we need more voices out there. So thank you for that.
Agreed. Thanks.